Hey guys, this is Thigh Company here. Welcome everybody to today's live stream. Today is February the 2nd, 2024. Welcome everyone to today's live stream. Hope you all are doing well today. And for today's live stream episode, we're going to be talking about another episode of the Sped series, which is about the housing history and his housing situation, kind of up to like what's going on now. So essentially, it's a little bit before so we'll cover basically the timeline of what his whole situation was prior to like I was being born, and then my years of growing up, and then how it all led up to his current situation where he's in like what Humane likes to call the Sped house. And basically where was he born in? Like in New York, right? And I'm gonna do one thing. I'm actually gonna see if I can call him up and kind of pull up his or like talk to him while I'm doing this kind of a timeline to see if he can kind of either reciprocate or even see if he remembers anything, if he can remember anything, because I know his memory's been kind of shot as of late. So let's see if he'll even answer. If he doesn't, I do have a plan B as well. Hello. Hey, good evening. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing well. I wanted to talk to you about something that I was kind of doing some research on, and you probably will know. It's a little bit of a housing history. So I was going to first ask you, so you pretty much were growing up in New York, right, during your childhood? Or when did you move?
The first half.
First half. So when did you all move from New York down to North Carolina? Or did you, now, if I might be mistaken, but did you all move to New Jersey at one point? Or how did that kind of all play out?
I don't know about that part of it, but the Valley Stream.
Now, remind me, what is Valley Stream?
That's a residential area. Pretty comfortable people.
So Valley Stream, where is that located? So is that a neighborhood, or what is that exactly?
Neighborhood.
It's a neighborhood, and that neighborhood is where? What state?
Valley Stream is in New York.
And that's where you that's where you were growing up.
Hold on 1 minute. That's what I'm going to tell them. Yeah, so Long Island is a Long Island and...
Right, and there's a neighborhood community called Valley Spring, is what you're telling me, right?
Yeah, hold on 1 second.
So I don't know why he's asking this lady, but all right.
Well, do you want to tell him?
What's that?
Valley Street, Long Island, is just outside of Manhattan. Okay, it's 180 miles long island, and Valley Stream is just maybe 40 miles.
Okay.
Inward.
So Valley Stream, to get back to...
Very close to New York City.
Yeah.
How long were you there? When did you move out of there?
Well, I was born there.
Right, and when did you move out? Did you go to New Jersey first, or did you go straight from Long Island down to North Carolina?
Well, let me tell you. Hold on. Let me tell you.
Okay.
Okay. I was getting. Hold on. That was about 12 years old when I was transferred, right?
Transferred to where?
13 miles put me in the, what do you call that area?
Well, what are you trying to say? Like, you saying 13 miles or 13 years?
13 miles is how much room you had in Valley Street.
For what?
for people to live.
Okay, well that's good to know. But I'm asking, when did you move out of Valley Stream?
We had a nice house. Yeah. And it's that Tudor house was about I think it was 70 years old, wasn't it?
No, your house was built by the contractor.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we were in the best house. You got me?
I understand, but I'm asking, when did you move out of Valley Springs?
1961.
So 1961, and you were in, so you would be about 12, 13 years old then, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and where did you move to from there?
Well, we went down south, North Carolina.
Okay, and where in North Carolina?
Valley, what's that? Whispering Pines.
Whispering Pines. Okay, and why did you move to Whispering Pines? Why was that specific area chosen?
My father was preparing his retirement.
He was preparing his retirement in the early 60s?
Yeah, and he wasn't done yet, but yes, that's what he was doing.
Okay, and why did he want to move down to Whispering Pines out of all areas?
Play golf.
Golf, okay. I didn't know that, but that's interesting. Was he a big golf guy, or?
No, he played. He played when he finally retired. He played golf.
Okay, that was his hobby.
Yeah, exercise and all that stuff.
Well, that's good. So he chose that area because of the golf environment, or was it more of well, what do you call it?
He liked golf.
Right.
This is when he started being able to play a fair amount of golf in Whispering Pines.
Right. So now, did he do any work in Whispering Pines when you moved down there, or was he fully retired by the time you all moved down?
He did some. He did. He was still working some.
Well, what was he do? What was his job down in Whispering Pines?
He was a. Let me describe it. He played what he calls selective practice. He played when he felt like it.
Played golf when he felt like it.
Yeah.
Right, but outside of playing golf, you said that he was still doing some work.
That's part of the golf. The golf was he wasn't full time, but he played golf a lot.
Right, but
more than that way.
Well, what did he do outside of golf?
Play golf.
So you're mentioning golf, and then he also did work.
Wait, hold on. The thing that he did was he got involved in. Hold on, you get me out of my rhythm here. He retired down to North Carolina in Whispering Pines.
Right.
But he wasn't working the whole day or anywhere near that. He would play, maybe an hour or two a week. So Mike is the one who would probably know that part of the time.
Right. Okay, well, I got you there. But so when you moved down to Whispering Pines, you were still in school and now were you working when you were during your time in school, or did you start work after you had graduated?
You're asking me?
Yes.
I was, I what's the name of that? Hewlett Elementary School was up north.
North of Whispering Pines?
Yeah, and it was very comfortable, wealthy people.
Okay.
And then he started to be politically fighting, that way.
So you're saying PJ became politically involved in the area or like in the community?
Well, yes, but not a big area, just the county.
What kind of work was he doing for the cat, or trying to get to for the county?
I don't know. Mike is the one who could answer that.
Well, was PJ more like? Oh, well, do you know or recall?
He kept working when he came south, but it wasn't very heavy.
Okay, so it wasn't like heavy work. So, well,
not heavy. He just, he would do a little bit of legal stuff.
Legal. Oh, so like legal counseling, or more like
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm a little curious. So now, did everybody move down to Whispering Pines? Was it you, Mike, Bill, and Karen?
Yeah, Mom.
And Mom, yeah, right. And so what did now, did she do any work?
Who?
Lois.
No, not really.
No. Okay, so she was more stay at home?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay. Now, did you personally, like later in, say, high school, during high school, were you doing any kind of work, or was that sort of after graduating?
I mowed some grass.
Well, grass. Okay.
And that was pretty much it. Okay,
I got you. Now, after graduating, so what would you say your first? Wasn't your first? I might be confusing with somebody else, but didn't you tell me that? I believe this was. I can't recall if this was after you had graduated, but you said you worked at a store of some sort, and they were trying to have you work in the basement of a store, sweeping or something.
Well, but not much. I mean, that was very, very light. It's just a kid wanting to get a couple,
right?
Enough to go
to go to movies or to get some food or.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it.
Right, I understand.
PJ was more active. I mean, with that, but not that much.
Okay.
And then he switched it over to what's called political stuff.
Okay. Do you know what if was he working on any particular political projects, or is this more of what Mike was aware with?
He did several things, and I don't know what it was. So you're gonna have to. Mike can probably help better.
Okay. Now, how long did you stay in Whispering Pines?
Well, I went to play. I was doing college.
Well, where did you go to college? Perhaps that's a better question.
Well, depends on different thing. I don't know. You got me in the middle of something. How about next weekend? I'll think about it a little more. Mike is the one who's most aware of it because he's older.
Right. Well, how about this? When did you get down to Salisbury?
Say that again.
When did you move to Salisbury?
Salisbury. Oh God, I don't know. I'll have to look it up. I was in college.
Right, but later after post college, you were in Salisbury because remember you were teaching at Livingston, I believe.
I was teaching at a couple. I think at 2 schools or a little school. But anyway, hey, you're gonna make me miss my movie here.
Oh, okay, I got you. All right, well, I'll get back to you later then.
Okay, you can ask me later.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, thanks.
All right, take care and good night. All right, so he's not remembering anything, unfortunately, which sucks. But at least I was able to get some information. So yeah, I basically grew up in New York on Long Island, in a place called whatever the name was. But modern day, I don't believe we have any importance to that area other than that's where he was growing up. But he came down to North Carolina to Whispering Pines, and Whispering Pines, I can kind of show you all a map here where in the world that is, because I don't know if you all know where that is or not. Whispering Pines is considered to be a village, not even a town or city, but a village in North Carolina. Let me do some screen sharing here. And I'm going to pull up the map because I'm trying to figure out how in the world he got to Salisbury. I'm going to ask somebody, see if by chance they know. My guess is probably they moved down to Whispering Pines in the 60s, and then he probably spent some time, like 20, 30 years in that area, and then probably came to Salisbury from Whispering Pines. But let's see. Бабушка, вы не в курсе, но вопрос. Когда папа приехал в Салсбери? В каком году? Ну, в 90-м или как? Не знаю. В каком году папа приехал в Салсбери, город?
В 91 году, в 92-м, мама вышла за него замуж.
Да, и они жили в Салсбери.
А когда он приехал, я не знаю, там работал.
А он говорит, что он не знает даже.
Ну, так я причем. Наверное, 80 какой-нибудь.
So she doesn't know either. So she thinks, as a guess, maybe late 80s. So let's say late 80s. I'm assuming he was kind of all about everywhere during that 20, 30-year period, but he doesn't seem to know anything, which, again, is a big Sped moment right there. But eventually it came down to Salisbury, and my mom was in, where is she, in New Jersey, and then went to Salisbury? I think that's how it worked. But anyway, regarding my dad, he was in Salisbury teaching, as what he was saying, at 2 or 3 different colleges there. And eventually I moved to Charlotte. And I think what happened was my dad got a job working for, was it Mecklenburg County and something? I think it was in their school system. So CMS, Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools. But I seem to recall him doing the work of being what he called a statistician. That was the title that he gave or told me, which is basically the duties involving that was he would try to like generate tests or create tests to kind of help teach teachers what to teach. That was his, phrase of explaining what he was doing, which I have a feeling that he may have been lying about that. But I remember one point being there at his job, like one day, and he was in like a cement cubicle place, and it was really kind of sketchy because he had a desk, and he was in like, imagine cement walls, and then like one door, and then he's sitting on this like old computer desk, on those computer XP computers and whatever, or 95, whatever they had back then. And then, we moved to Charlotte. So that's would have been probably, let me see. Let me ask right quick. Charlotte, basically, right? Or year I was born, I guess. But So we had the house in North Charlotte. So that was bought the house probably sometime around that area or that time frame, and we were there pretty much until 2007 when my dad got a sped idea of moving down to Tampa, Florida, because he thought he was going to get this. He actually wanted to get all of us down there. But his crazy idea was that he was going to be a stay-at-home dad and have my mom work, which, that was not going to fly with her or, my mom's parents or, grandparents. And that's kind of where part of the conflict came about. And what ended up happening was that he moved down to Tampa, and eventually this became this like separation where my mom stayed in Charlotte, he was in Tampa. And I think what happened was he was trying to get to work with my half brother or his first son. And he was like talking about the idea of like doing a combination of different things with him, like doing like an insurance firm. He also wanted to do real estate down there. But it was mainly like my half brother kind of arguably doing the work, or really nobody was. The way it kind of came out to be was that my half brother was an organizer or collector of people, and these other people would be doing the work, but he would be organizing everything and he would be kind of like the boss or managing everything. And my dad kind of wanted to be in that area too, also not doing anything and somehow making money off of not doing anything and being kind of a manager. Right. Which basically nothing worked out for him and he didn't get any clients. And I think my half brother kind of had the clients and he was getting the money. And then eventually my mom was like, kind of screw all this. I'm not going to be here by myself in Charlotte. And my dad was like, oh, you all need to sell the house and come down to Tampa. But what ended up happening was I think they renovated the house, or rather my mom renovated the house, and she ended up selling the house. I don't know if my dad got any money from the house that was being sold. Maybe he got a small chunk or something. And I think my grandparents were kind of like against the idea of giving him any money. But my mom eventually in 2007, 2008, around that time frame, she ended up finding a house in Southeast Charlotte and ended up moving there. And she basically, was doing renovations there and keeping the house there. But for my dad, he got jealous that my mom bought a house. And so he bought a house in the same city where my half brother stays at in Tampa, Florida. And he wasn't really able to buy a house. So he kind of sort of mortgaged a house with his mom or my grandmother. And so it was basically my dad's mom or my grandmother and them two living there. And they were doing this weird thing where it's like my dad was sort of working with my half brother, but barely making any money and mainly relying on two different pensions. And then my grandmother was also getting sort of a pension, and she had some money saved up from my grandfather. And so basically whatever money she had, it was basically her in one bedroom, he in another room. And then with another coworker or some guy they found, they had this third guy renting out what they called a bonus room, or like a room kind of separated or separately attached from the house. And that's kind of their setup. But eventually my dad was spending money left and right. My dad was getting into debt. And plus he did not have a really great stable income. And plus he didn't take care of the house at all. He didn't do things like, wash dishes, take trash out, things that are kind of basic. Like he wouldn't do the basics of like homekeeping. And then he started getting into issues like he claimed that he had diabetes and then became very obese. And then he had trouble, began developing issues with walking, where he would claim that, oh, my legs hurt, my knees hurt. And basically, it's a lot of it's laziness. Um, but he claims that he has like a neuropathy, like a medical um, issue going on. And by the time eventually ended up like losing the house, and he moved out of Tampa, Florida, and it became the situation where they I think I don't know what happened with the relationship between he and my half brother. I suspect something went south there, but he and my grandmother, they moved from Tampa, Florida to basically the Atlanta, Georgia metropolitan area. And they moved into a place called Johns Creek, which is where my aunt stays at. And um, I think what ended up happening was my grandmother was staying in like the first room or first floor of the house in a small bedroom, and my dad was staying upstairs in a bedroom. And I don't know if they were paying rent or not. I suspect they were paying some sort of a monthly rent, but it was sort of mixed all over the place. And then eventually my grandmother started doing what I call house hopping, which is she would go to one house and then go to another house, and eventually she became stuck with two different houses, which was just my aunt and then one of my uncles who lives in a place in South Carolina, kind of near Spartanburg, Greenville area. Um, and she'd kind of be, stay a month here, go to a month there, and then, have no responsibilities and basically live off of somebody was her strategy, which became kind of what my dad was doing. And then eventually my grandmother came back to Atlanta retirement center or senior center, whatever you call it, adult senior center, adult living facility. There's all a bunch of fancy names, but I call it a senior center. She basically started, they eventually, I think what ended up happening was she was in this living in like a 2-bedroom senior center kind of dwelling. She was there, and then my grandmother had a sort of a sister slash cousin slash, cousin removed, twice removed, sister's brother-in-law, some kind of mystery family member who was rich, from my understanding. And my grandmother was sort of arguably middle class, maybe even less than that. She could have been poor, but collectively with her pension and funding, whatever money she had left, and then all of her children, meaning that my dad didn't pay anything, and it was basically two of my uncles, my aunt, and then I think my half brother was also contributing some money to her monthly rent. And she basically was at this facility, and then eventually in 2016 she moved to another facility before she passed away in 2016. And my dad was like, he came up with this idea, was like, oh, my work is going to be taking care of my grandmother. And because of that, I think he worked out a deal where he didn't have to pay rent, so he was technically living for free in this bedroom, but he wasn't doing a thing. He was just wasting his life away, supposedly taking care of my grandmother. But I suspect he was just kind of up to nothing, really, if that makes any sense of calling it that way. And he, here's another Ola. We have Gavin RBX Ola and X Ariel X Ola. Welcome, welcome. Bienvenidos. I have 2 Spanish speakers in the live stream. That's unusual. But yeah, he was like basically spending his time taking care of my grandmother, and he would do weird things. Like he started doing family genealogy, but he was doing it back when he was in Charlotte as well. He came up with this company called Memories into Media, where he thought he was going to make money and people were going to pay him to go over to their house, record somebody telling family stories, and then he would like sell this service of recording them, and services like collecting family photographs, making it into a family like album, um, doing video like interviews with somebody. Like he thought he was going to make a business from that, but he wasn't serious. He wasn't going out trying to find any clients. He wasn't advertising any services, but arguably, he could have probably tried to do something like that for Facebook, but he had no marketing experience. He didn't know what to do, and he didn't do a thing. He didn't like try to tell anybody or he didn't do any advertising. He wasn't. My grandmother had passed away, so this is like after 2016. My dad started freaking out, trying to figure out what to do. And I think around this time is when he started going crazy. But I have other people saying he probably went crazy around 2017, and when he went sped, right, as he likes to use that word. Um, so when he went sped was either 2007 or 2016. My thinking it's 2016 when my grandmother passed away, and why he went sped was, if we go over the 2007 theory, it's based on the idea that he became jealous that my mom became successful and my dad became a kind of a nobody in a sense. Or if we go over the 2016 theory, the idea is that uh, my dad started freaking out that he didn't know what to do, how he was going to spend his day, looking for something to keep him busy or preoccupied was his big concern. So around around the time after my grandmother had passed away in 2016, he started having to pay rent for staying at the bedroom at my aunt's place because my aunt didn't really particularly like him around there, and he wasn't really up to no good. And from my understanding, he was eating all their groceries, and my aunt didn't like any of that. So that was the reason why she was starting to charge him monthly rent. And eventually, he wasn't able to come to the paying monthly rents, and he was starting to lose out of whatever savings or money he had. So his next plan was he went um, with this lady who was at the retirement center where my grandmother was. And what he kind of, in a genius way, arguably, he had brainwashed this lady or befriended a lady at the senior center, and he brainwashed her to allow for him to live with her. And so, her being brainwashed, she allowed for my dad to live with her, and they ended up building up a relationship. Um, I don't know how big the relationship was, but he started living with her for a few years. And then sometime around 2019, 2020, somewhere in that neighborhood, he started to get even lazier and decided not to do anything. And he was like, I'm not going to go pay to have a car. Why should I have a car when I have this lady driving me around? So what he ends up doing is that he does not renew his license. He ends up selling his car, which I think was like a Toyota Corolla with a hatchback or something, which, he didn't do any maintenance with. He didn't care one way or another. So he probably sold it for junk or, for whatever he was able to get an offer for. And after staying at this lady's place, he's got even lazier, didn't want to do again basic household needs like cleaning dishes, taking the trash out, and etc. And I'm imagining there were probably arguments in that area over that. So eventually what he ends up doing around 2019 and 2020 is he brainwashes and manipulates this lady to sell her house, to sell her car as well. And they move out of Johns Creek, and they start hopping around to Alpharetta, Lawrenceville, and eventually they go to this place called Dacula, Georgia. And within Decula, Georgia, they find this adult senior center or living center, and they move into there. And he convinces the lady for them to move in together, and they're renting out, I think, a 2-bedroom apartment. And he has the freaking lady pay for the rent, and so he's living at this assisted living facility with her for free, so he doesn't have to do anything. And he's basically there, and they're living there for like 1 or 2 years, and then my dad starts developing even more serious health problems. He first has, like, I think, a series of falls, and then one fall led him to go being taken to the hospital. He had, I think, 2 heart attacks, and he recovered from the 2 heart attacks. And now within the last year or two, so 2013, 2014, he starts having memory issues, and we think he may be having dementia or Alzheimer's. I don't know if he was given an official diagnosis or not, but he's now basically, arguably, he doesn't know how to walk or walks with a cane, so he's possibly semi-mobile, but his memory is crap. Doesn't recall anything, doesn't remember anything, which is a big issue. And now the new development for 2024, so where this all leads up to is that because my dad is having moderate to possible severe dementia, I would say it's kind of like getting inching into being moderate, because if he calls me up at 3 o'clock in the morning saying there's freaking special agents and spies trying to capture him and burn down some library, and we got to go call the sheriff to save some books at the library because, oh, there's a bus at the end of the road, we got to save the bus, guys, there's children on the bus, oh no, save the library, but don't tell them my name now, or they're going to capture me for, you know, that delirious, that, what do you call it? That becoming delirious, I guess. But that was what was going on in like late 2023. So eventually, after communicating with other family members, we ended up having a group meeting, and we're now trying to get them into one of two places. The first place, which is short term and which is probably what's going to end up happening within the next month or two, or within that time frame, um, he's going to get moved from general, what you call general population, to a memory care division. So he's basically going to have to get extra care, and he will be. We think he's going to be separated from the lady he's living with. We don't know for sure. She may still be there. Um, but he doesn't even know what's going on at this point, which is kind of concerning, that his dementia is basically moderate. So we'll see how that goes. But I would eventually like for him to come back to Charlotte and probably put him up in an apartment complex somewhere here. And maybe even potentially come up with a plan of me basically having another income of me taking care of him, because he would qualify based on his age for like insurance that would cover like in-home health care plus everything that's involved in it with home care and all that, with another second coverage for be close by, so I could come in and actually monitor what his current status is, what his living conditions are, and kind of see what's going on. And then as a backup, like if things go south real quick, he's in a place where we can uh, well, Charlotte has really nice medicine, and they have a nice hospital system here. um, but worst case scenario, we could always take him from Charlotte to Tampa and have him to my half brother, or because there's no obligation for me to be like permanently a person to take care of him, but it's it's a possible route I might want to look into. But I just find it so crazy that he's unfortunately has never been a person who's like actively tried to work or build up a career or even save money for for any kind of reason, which I find very unusual. That's what he decided to choose to do in his life, even though the guy was a freaking professor teaching psychology. So I just find that strange that he never did anything with the psychology stuff, even though my understanding is he did do like a research book or do something at one point. Um, so that's the first thing. The second thing, he could have done something easily in Charlotte. Charlotte's a major city. Plus, he had a job within like a government job, so he could have done, stayed in that area and done something in that field. Which again, he didn't. He ended up leaving to go to Tampa, Florida, and he never did anything with my half brother. I don't know why that never was something that occurred, which I'm assuming is probably from his own laziness. But then, again, nothing in Georgia, and that's it. So I don't know, what to make about him choosing all those options, right? And it just seems crazy that I don't know if it's a laziness issue or maybe there's something else that I'm not aware of. Um, but everybody I've spoken with thinks they think it's his own um, self self apathy, like him not wanting to have a desire of doing anything. Because there's a theory that he was talking about in the beginning of this live stream that his dad was like a avid golfer. And I know at one point my dad had this fantasy where he wanted to become a professional full-time golfer. And he was spending a bunch of money getting golf clubs, golf equipment. He was going to all these like what do you call it, drive ranges, what do you call it, golf areas or parks, and that was his thing. He would want to become a golfer, and then he started getting fat, and I think he had diabetes, which I think from the diabetes is probably more than likely what affected his legs. But he's like, "Oh, I got fat because of the Russians." That's his theory, that he got unhealthy because of the Russians feeding him unhealthy food. So that's his big crazy idea or theory that he's coming up with. But and then like he never did anything to try to fix it or correct it or do any sort of like attempt to reverse the issues that he was having. So I'm afraid now that he's at the point where he's become too sped or too crazy, where we're coming up to what I call an unfortunate end of life plan, meaning that this is where he's going to go to for the foreseeable future, towards to the end of life, whatever that's going to be, or whenever that's going to be. Um, which hopefully it's not going to be something that happens soon. But my thinking is, if we can get him to Charlotte and at least get him to like a comfortable place in Charlotte, we can from there see if he has any last potential to pull himself up. And I think that in Charlotte, that's going to be his last chance at something. We don't know what that's going to be, but that's kind of what we're kind of having as a game plan for the future. But all right, guys. Well, what do you think about that big story about the Sped dad housing history? Hopefully, you all enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already. We're over 1,300 subscribers now, which is amazing. Hopefully, we can get to 1,500 subscribers by the end of the month, which I think we can very likely do that now, based on the given trend that I'm seeing on the YouTube analytics. But yeah, make sure to subscribe if you have not already. Like this video, give this video a thumbs up. Click the bell icon as well so you get notifications for future live streams, episodes, and videos and shorts and all that. And also comment down below what you would like to see for future videos. If you have any recommendations for live streams, or you want me to talk about a particular story as well. I did do a poll at the beginning of January. It's probably time for me to do another one. Um, asking you all what you all think about the live streams, what you all would like for me to cover for the live streams as well. And the one I sent in January, the major voting, or people voted for most, was for me to cover family stories. So that's like, I've been talking about my dad a lot. Let's see. I know I talked about my sister back in December. I might do a little bit more of that. Um, Talked about my grandparents a little bit here and there. But yeah, if you want me to talk about something else as well, let me know down in the comments. And thank you all so much for watching today's live stream. I've been hoping you all have a good, wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful rest of February. So thank you guys so much, and we will see you all on the next show. Take care, guys. Stay safe. Have fun.